So, needless to say, I'm really, really humbled to kind of be here to kind of talk to you guys because I was in the seat and there wasn't much guidance when I was there. So it was really stuff that I was learning on my own. So what I want to give to you guys today is a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of high-level knowledge that you could take from here after your academic world and take it to the practical world and have some knowledge that will give you the edge over other entry-level IT people or IS or MIS people. So needless to say, I'd like to thank Kelly, Mustafa, and EJ, and all of you guys for allowing me to kind of really get the pleasure of talking to you guys and give you guys this talk. And you know, I always like to talk to younger people, even though I'm still young. You know, I'm only just above the 30 line, so it's only 11 years ago that I was in college. So it's really humbling to be able to get this opportunity. So I kind of wanted to thank you all for giving me this opportunity. And I definitely want to, after this session, I'd like to reconnect with you all because it's always good. One thing about this industry that I've learned is that it's always good to reconnect with people, to maintain that network. And that's why I was telling some of you earlier, LinkedIn is so powerful because this valley is really small. And you guys, the advantage you guys have over people in the East Coast or Midwest or South is that you guys are in the right area for this field. For MIS, information systems, for CS, anything technology related, this is the right place to be. So that gives you another competitive advantage because someone who's going to school in Colorado, yeah, Denver's starting to be the new Silicon Valley, Austin is trying to be the new Silicon Valley, but this is the original. This is where all the big companies start. This is where everything, innovation starts here. So this is the place to be for what you guys are doing, and that's really good news for you guys. So I'd like to start by kind of giving an introduction of myself. My name is AbuShahba, and just like EJ said, I have background with Linux system administration. So I graduated from Rutgers University in 2004, my BA in information systems. It wasn't MIS, but it was more a combination of CS with IS, rather than more management with CS. It was more of how to use technology to run your business, and that's really my focus. That's always what I've been interested in. And of course, in that realm, there's so much you could do. You could be a project manager, you could be a system analyst, you could be a data analyst, you could all the way up to a CIO level. And CIO level is when you understand how to bridge the two things. And what I'm about to tell you right now is really what it boils down to. And this took me a long time to figure out. And what it is basically, any company has two entities. One entity is the business, and the other entity is IT. So it's the business and IT. So any company you go to is going to be like that. Most companies struggle today with connecting the bridge between the business and IT. Because the business looks at IT infrastructure as it's just a black box. We're dumping money in it, but what's the value that we're getting from it? So being able to bridge that gap and connect the missing dots and show the value that information system or your IT infrastructure provides, that gives the company complete visibility. Okay, our IT that we're relying on provides us this value, this metrics, with fees. Without this IT infrastructure, we cannot run. We can't do our business. In today's world, every business in this world runs on an IT infrastructure. So having that solid understanding of knowing how to bridge that gap, that's what I focus on, and that's what's a big demand that I'm noticing in today's IT industry, is the big demand of people that can understand how to bridge the gap between the business and IT. Because most companies, they struggle with both of them working in silos, and the business just looks at IT as dollar signs. It's just dumping money into it. You know, data centers that cost so much money, millions of dollars worth of NetApp gear or Cisco switches and stuff like that. But what is, $1 million question is, what is the value that the business is getting from IT? Without that, what is the value? How do you quantify that? How do you define that? So that's one of the biggest things that a lot of companies struggle with. So back to my intro anyways. I'll be talking more about that. So that's really what I wanted to focus on. And I wanted to kind of relate that to what I do right now. So 10 years ago, I was pretty much sitting similar to where you guys were. I was third year in college, IS degree, and I was always in my mind, I was like, what am I gonna do once I graduate? Am I gonna just start off as a support level person, help desk, just kind of fixing computers? Because I remember being in Rutgers computer labs, I was the computer lab guy. I was the guy on campus everyone would go to just, hey, I mean, they still have computer labs here, right? Yeah, I would be the guy in the computer lab. I would like live there almost, even when I was in on shift working part-time, I was the guy that was like helping everyone out with whether it's software issues, whether they're, at that time we were using floppy disks actually, or zip drives, if you remember that. Yeah, zip drives. And I was the person that was helping people recover, helping people do that. And that's one thing I always wanted to focus on. And in the real world, when you work in a company, people will appreciate you being collaborative and helpful. If you become proactive to help someone out and take that time out, people will always remember that. And that goes back to that network I was telling you about. When you create a network and people vouch for you, they're like, okay, this guy has good work ethic, and he has gone out of his way above and beyond to help me out to do this deliverable. And he has good teamwork. He is able to communicate. So these qualities, it's priceless. When you have people that can vouch for you, and you have good credibility in that sense, it becomes priceless. No, doesn't matter how many PhDs you have, how many 30, 40 years of experience, it's having these qualities that takes you ahead in life. And it's not the politics that you run into in the corporate world, which you will run into, but it's how your behavior is, how you carry yourself when you're in teamwork, when you're delivering projects or you're working with others, because it's always going to be a sense of teamwork. It's always going to be collaboration. And a lot of tech guys that I see out there, they struggle with that. They may be the best developer, the most uber sysadmin or DevOps person out there, but they struggle with working with others. They don't have that character side of things that people are looking for. And when you go into interviews these days, you'll see that a lot of interviews, a lot of the questions are more behavioral questions rather than technical questions. Like, what would you do in this situation? If you're bought with, you have a deadline, and you have these issues that you have to prioritize, how would you deal with it? If you have a coworker that came to you with this question and you're busy, what would you do? So it's a lot of these very character-based situational questions that you will need to know how to react and what are the right do's and don'ts. On LinkedIn, I would highly encourage you all to really be engaged on LinkedIn more than Facebook. I gotta say, I'm actually more active in LinkedIn than Facebook, because there's a lot of these articles that are on the front page. I think it's run by Pulse or something like that. But these articles, like every day I read it. It's quick reads, because I don't like reading too long. I don't like books actually. I like quick reads, get to the point, learn, and move on. So these articles that are on LinkedIn are really great. It tells you the do's and don'ts. They're very practical. They're from people that actually work out there, 20, 30 years of experience. So stuff like that are very valuable. You learn from it and you move on. So being on LinkedIn, I highly encourage you all to do that, and you'll definitely get a lot of sense of value from it. So going back to my intro, just to recap, I know I'm getting sidetracked a little bit, but I was an IS major. That was my BEA degree. Then I graduated May of 2004 from Rutgers University in New Jersey. And I remember it was May, and after I graduated, I was like, oh yeah, everything is cool. 4 years, did it in 4 years. Everything's cool, everything's good. Had a party, everything was good. And then the next week, it was like, actually a few days after, it was like, all right, now what? I was just sitting home, kind of felt like a bum actually, to be honest with you. I was like, what should I do? What do I want to get into? really the biggest struggle that a lot of fresh college graduates pretty much run into. And of course, being in the East Coast, it's a lot of competition. It's a quite different culture than it's out here. Over there, it's very financial, kind of driven market employers. So they'll just look at you as a number, as opposed to here, they actually appreciate you as a person. You know, they're like, okay, we value you. You know why? Because many different other companies will fight for you. And another thing is out here, the benefit you guys have is that they like fresh talent. They're not going to look at you down because you're entry level. They actually appreciate that because they feel like entry level person will be more motivated than a guy that's been there for 15 years and he's too comfortable. And he's like, yeah, you know, kind of gets, for lack of a better term, cocky. So out here there feels more appreciation for the IT worker or the employee in the tech market. So that's another competitive edge. So basically, it took me 6 months. Yeah, I remember I graduated in May, end of May 20th, and it took me till beginning of December to get my first job. And it was like, it was low paying. It was like, I think it was like 30 something grand a year job. It was like a help desk position. It was a support position, which I was willing to do. Now, I was like almost desperate to get anything. And I remember at that time, the economy wasn't very great. But you know, sometimes in life you gotta start somewhere. You know, it wasn't the best of job. It was like taking calls like left and right and getting tracked. But it was something that I wanted to get nailed down. Like, I was like, I know this is gonna be a start. I'm gonna go up from there. It's just a start. I'm not gonna get caught up in why it's so low level, but it's something that I want to nail, learn, and move on. So I did it for 2-3 years. You know, it was actually really good because it taught me how to talk to people. It taught me the sense of customer service, and that is, on its own, priceless. Because no matter what industry you work on, you're gonna have to socialize with people. You're gonna have to know how to communicate. You're gonna have to know how to. That communication skills is just something you don't learn from picking up a book. So the more you do it, the more I talk to people on the phone, dealing with irate people, dealing with these kinds of people, and helping them, that really encouraged me. That made me feel empowered. So I did it for a couple years. So it was really, I was supporting like a bunch of software for clinical trials. I did that for 2 years, and then actually 2.5 years, and then I started learning. During college, I was very Linux user based. So there was a lot of, I was part of a club like this called Linux Users Group, LUN or LUG, and it was very open source. This was when open source was beginning to take off. Like Linux was like the new thing. It was still fresh, and you know, it was like kind of like new, and people were like beginning to adopt it. And this was actually before OS X came out, and then OS X used the FreeBSD framework. So I was really interested in that, and I networked with a lot of people that were into that. So I learned how, you know, these Unix systems are so powerful. It beats the reliability and efficiency of any Windows machine, for that matter. So, and this was back when Solaris was still around. And now, of course, Solaris is no longer around, or Oracle wiped them out. But it was great because I learned the backbone system. You know, even though I wanted to get more into the business side, I knew that I had to, it was essential for me to get my hands dirty, because sometimes when you get your hands dirty, that's when you know you could leverage that to go to the business side, because you've seen the tech stuff, you've seen how the technology works. Once you gain that, you get that leverage to move on to the business side. You see how you connect the technology stack and you connect it to the business vision to make sure that the technology supports the business. So, needless to say, my second gig was working for a hosting company named DataPipe, and that was my first kind of tech gig. That was, started off as a systems administrator, very entry level, started working on servers, bare metal servers, you know, most of them were Red Hat Linux, FreeBSD, which was started by University in Berkeley. They started FreeBSD, and then I've seen it. I've worked in that position for 5.5 years, And I've seen it evolve from a bare metal, very legacy systems, all the way to the cloud infrastructure. Because now all you hear is cloud, right? That's like the big buzzword, and you know, in this industry, there's always going to be buzzwords. So cloud is one of them. You know, a few years ago, there was a saying: "You say the word cloud, you make $1 million." That was kind of true. It's a very trendy buzzwords, and there's always going to be trends. So I've seen it evolve into just running one server, and it would be a hassle to just set up one server. And then now, within a point of a click, you could set up a cluster stack of 30, 40 servers that do way more efficient work than a whole rack in a data center. You know, and these are virtual machines using open source systems that you don't need to use VMware. So I've seen the evolution of system administration from the bare metal side all the way into the cloud, which we leveraged Amazon, AWS, if you're familiar with that. We used VMware, Zen. So we used a lot of technology stacks. So that gave me a lot of good technical knowledge. I was configuring network stuff from an OS layer. So it was really good because it gave me that leverage to know how things run on the back end. So that I knew eventually my stretch goal was to go more into the business side of IT. But I knew that I had to stay patient because sometimes it's not easy that way. Sometimes you got to get your hands dirty into one thing, because in the IT world, it's like a big kind of jungle, I would say. So many things you could specialize in. And it's better to specialize in something you're passionate about. That's one other thing I want to tell you guys. Always do something that you're passionate about, because whenever you're passionate about something, you're going to go to work every day, feel motivated. You're going to love doing what you do. You're going to do it really well. You're going to give it your 110% because you're passionate about it. And that's just the way it goes with anything. So with that said, I mean, it was really that I was, I wanted to do what I was passionate in, and I ended up doing that. System administration, I really liked how Linux systems worked. So I worked at DataPipe, which actually is the reason why I moved here, because the company is based in New Jersey, and that's where I lived, that's where I grew up.